question is that the motion be agreed to, and I call the member for Parramatta.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I want to thank the member for Lyons for this important motion. And can I also agree with the member for Groom, who recognised that the NBN was critical for Australia's response to the COVID pandemic. Critical in helping kids to continue their education, critical in helping families to stay connected, and critical in terms of helping businesses to stay open. And over the last 2 years, the reliance on services over the NBN has never been greater. So, Deputy Speaker, it is worth considering the history of the NBN and the decisions made by successive governments to deliver this critical piece of infrastructure. It was 2009 when then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd announced the beginning of a new national broadband network strategy. The plan was to build fibre to the premises. This would be a quantum leap from the existing unreliable national internet infrastructure that relied primarily on copper cabling. It was a bold plan, it was visionary, and it was the plan that Australia needed. Now, Deputy Speaker, quite in contrast to what the member for Groom just said, almost immediately the Liberals opposed it. Tony Abbott, as the Leader of the Opposition, said in 2010 that they would, and I quote, demolish the NBN because it wasn't necessary. Soon thereafter, the Shadow Communications Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, said that there would be no demand for the services that the NBN would deliver, and it was not required in Australia. Sadly, after the 2013 election, Deputy Speaker, the Liberals got their hands on Labor's NBN and almost immediately they began to vandalise it. The Liberals' plan was to replace the largely fibre to the premises model initiated by the Labor government with what they called a multi-technology mix, or MTM model, including a range of old technologies, including fibre to the node, fibre to the curb, and hybrid fibre coaxial cable. The changes to the NBN under the Liberals are some of the worst public policy decisions in Australia's history. The consequence of the move to the MTM model has ended up costing Australian taxpayers billions of dollars more than the deep fibre NBN original model, and it will also result in a network that is considerably less capable of meeting the nation's future internet needs. The Liberals' policy took the visionary NBN and turned it into three kinds of disaster. First of all, Deputy Speaker, it was a financial disaster. The mixed technology approach was supposed to be much cheaper than full fibre. Malcolm Turnbull told us that it would be much less expensive. First, he promised that it would cost just $29 billion. But then this was successively revised upwards, first to $41 billion, then to $49 billion, then to $58 billion, Deputy Speaker. The Liberals weren't a little bit wrong in their financial forecast. This wasn't a small forecast error. They were out by a factor of 2. The cost was double. Deputy Speaker, they were 100% wrong in their forecasts of the cost of their new model. And as a result, their NBN model became one of the biggest blowouts of public financial projections in a decade. The cost blowout makes a mockery of Liberals' claims to be prudent financial managers. Not only was the additional build cost disastrous, but their changes to the NBN also degraded the ongoing financial position of the network. The financial health of the NBN is a function of its cash flow, which in turn is a function of revenue and operating costs. And the original model was a relatively low-cost operating model, with minimal need for upgrade or maintenance. But the current NBN, Deputy Speaker, is beset with additional costs. Not only the additional costs which we're now experiencing of upgrading the network through additional capital spend, but also additional costs of ongoing maintenance. Maintenance of a much more complex and fragile network using a mix of technologies, all of which are approaching the end of their life cycle. For both of these reasons, Deputy Speaker, the future cash flows of the NBN have been burdened by these additional costs, weighing down the long-term viability of the NBN. Second, Deputy Speaker, the new NBN model is operationally disastrous. Rather than having a clear, reliable, high-speed fibre NBN, we have an NBN which delivers worse reliability through inferior technology. That's right. Now we're having to change that, but years and billions of dollars have been wasted. Finally, Deputy Speaker, the changes to the NBN were economically disastrous. We now have a wasted decade of opportunity, a wasted decade of when we could have been surging ahead with the digital economy, a wasted decade when we could have been moving our digital economy forward, and Australians know who to blame: the Liberals, the hubris of Malcolm Turnbull and the incompetence of the member for Bradfield as